Okay, so something a bit different today. I've said before about this car, when we did the CV joint actually on the front wheel there, that there's quite a few scratches on it. It's quite a few years old. It's got a few bits of wear and tear on there. If I just take the camera off, we can see down at the back corner, as ever in the corners, there's a good scuff there. On the bumper here, not really sure if it's coming out on the camera, there's quite a few scuffs here. This one here is quite a bad one. We're not going to be able to do too much about that. But then just all down the side, it's just peppered with kind of light scratches from hedges. Down the bottom here, we've got kind of quite a deep gouge. You can see there that it's obviously chipped the paint off, so we're not going to be able to do too much about that. But something that's really annoying is just here that you can see. It looks like someone's tried to get a bug off or something off with a Brillo pad, and it's really quite annoying. It only looks like it's on the surface, but I want to try and get this out. There are other marks, like I say. There's a little dink in the door there as well, where someone's been kind enough to open their door into the car, and some other marks and bits and pieces. So what we're going to do is give this section a real good clean down. There's even some fingerprints, I think, in the paint here. So we'll get this nice and clean, get it rinsed. We're going to clay the car as well. We're going to clay all these points as well, get it nice and really clean, and then we're going to get the buffer out and get some compound polish and really try and polish those out. And then, yeah, hopefully we'll see what sort of result we can get. So with that a whole lot cleaner, what we need to do now is just clay the car to try and get all the contaminants off it, all the any bits of tar or anything like that, anything that's flung up from the road. So it's likely to be worse down the bottom. It's always worse, obviously, just underneath behind the front wheels. But we're going to do this entire area that we're going to try and buff, so we're not just buffing more dirt into the car. So I've got my clay bar. I've already used some previously, and obviously to go with the clay bar, I've got my clay lube. So I'm just going to break a bit off the clay bar, work it into kind of a nice disc shape, and then we can get our lube on the car, give it a good spray, and then start working the clay into the car. So with the clay kind of worked into a nice disc shape, what we're going to do, like I say, is just get our lube, spray it onto the car. We need to make sure that we keep it nice and moist the entire time that we're trying to clay it. Last thing you want is to be rubbing the dry clay onto the paintwork. So we're just going to keep that nice and moist, just working nice slow circle motions, or not necessarily slow, but circle motions. I'm just going to go around methodically, making sure that I've got every single spot. And then what we should see is some tar coming off, or some black spots coming off onto the clay itself. What I should say, if you drop your clay on the floor, then seriously consider binning it, because if you've got little bits of grit or anything like that, all you're going to be doing is just basically rubbing that into your paint and just scratching it up and killing it even more. So as much as this car is quite old, like I say, it's 10, 11, 12 years old now, I think it is, and the paintwork does need some attention, hence why we're doing this. I don't want to be rubbing more grit into it unnecessarily, so I'm just going to be really careful not to drop this on the floor the entire time I'm doing it. Okay, here's a really good example of where that tar's kind of come off the paint now and it's in the clay. So you can see it's obviously all smeared into it there. So rather than keep rubbing it in, when it starts to get like that, what you want to do is just fold it into itself, folding it over and over, and then what you'll always be doing is using a nice clean bit. Okay, once you're happy that you've clayed the car and all the points that you're going to be working on are done, I'm just going to use a microfiber cloth just to dry off that lube, just to get the worst of the excess off, should we say, so that we can move on to the next step. Okay, just by claying it, it's actually really come up a whole lot better already. So that particular scuff that we were looking at, you can still see it kind of quite a lot there. Obviously the dink, we're not going to do anything about that point there where it's scratched, and this one down here. But you can still obviously see lots of these scratches that are along here, some of these bigger ones as well. So what we're going to do now is get onto the using the polisher. So this is the polisher we're going to use. We've got our foam pad on the top. The compound we're going to be using some turtle wax polishing compound, as it says, light to medium. So what we're going to do is get some of this, we're going to dab it onto the top of the pad here, and then we'll dab the pad across the areas where we want to work it into, and then slowly turn it on and start working it in. The pad I'm using is quite a firm pad to start with, and then what we're going to do, once we're happy with that, I'll swap it over for the black pad, which is a lot softer. It feels a lot, much more spongy than this one. This one's really quite firm. So we'll get some compound onto the pad and get polishing. So we've just got some spots that we just put on the pad. So we're just going to tap this on, just give it a few spots here and there, just working it around all the areas where we want it to go. This polisher has got different preset speeds on it. So it goes from 1 up to 6, 6 obviously being the fastest. So what we're going to do, we're just going to start down at number 1 first, and then see how we get on, maybe work our speed up. Okay, so I thought before I'd carry on, I'd just check, and it does actually say to use a damp sponge or a damp applicator when we're doing it. So I've just moistened the sponge a little bit, so we'll carry on and we'll see how we get on. So we've given that a really good go over that entire section. What I actually found was it was easier in the end to actually just kind of wetten down the surface of the car rather than kind of keep moistening the pad as you went. So I didn't want to keep turning the pad off or keep turning the polisher machine off, unplug it and stuff like that. Water and electricity don't mix obviously, so I found it easier to actually just wetten the side of the car, just get a sponge and just kind of drip some water over it, apply a bit more compound and just worked it all the way in, all the way around, and just round to that back corner as well. So what I'm going to do now is just get a black sponge on there, just go in for the next level of compound, and then yeah, move on to the next stage. Okay, this time what I've done is actually soaked the pad. I kind of put it in the water, give it a real good squeeze, so it's actually really moist the whole way through, not just on the surface. So we'll see how this goes. Right, so it's looking pretty good, pretty pleased with the results so far. You can see obviously it's covered in polish, so it's a bit hard to tell if it's actually going to have worked. But what I'm going to do now is just get the worst of that compound off, having done the orange sponge and the softer black sponge. I'm just going to work it off, just going to give it a rinse down. Obviously you can see that it's gone all over the windows where it was wet as well, so I'll just give it a complete rinse off and then we'll start to work some polish into it. Okay, with that rinse down, just going to give it a quick dry off with a lint-free cloth. So for the penultimate stage, I'm going to be using this T-Cut Colour Fast stuff. It says it removes scratches, cleans and shines and restores paintwork and so on. So in essence what it actually says on the back is that you may not actually need to bother with the polishing stage, but I know that I've done it before and this scratch that was here isn't going to come out, or those sorts of ones. So I'm pleased to have done that already. So I'm going to crack on, use some of this, we'll see what results we get, and obviously at the end of it we'll be able to give you some feedback as to whether or not this is really good for your 10-year-old paint, and if it's going to give us a really good result. So I've got the silver one, obviously the car's silver, so it's the right colour. So I'm just going to apply this again to a black pad, we'll get that on and we'll start working it into it. So I'll carry on with this section, get this T-Cut polish on, and then we'll come back to the next stage. If that really worked in, we'll just let that dry off for a minute. I think probably the black sponge that I used still had too much water in. I think you probably saw as I turned it on, it really kind of started to splurt everywhere. So it's now, if I just show you the windows, it's over the windows again, so I just need to give that a rinse down as well. And obviously on the driver's door that we've not touched yet. But for now it's actually looking quite good. So we'll just give it a couple of minutes to dry. And then what we'll do, we'll move on to the last pad, which is going to be this cotton pad. So we'll just swap that out. Obviously it's just the Velcro back, same as all the others. So with our cotton pad on, let's give this a go. Nice and gently, just as the others. Not too much pressure, we don't want to be forcing into it because we don't want to take the paint off, we just want to polish the paint. So let's give it a go. I think possibly I might have left it a little bit too long. It's really quite hot today, it's really quite sunny, so possibly it baked on a little bit too hard. It was really difficult to get off even with the cotton pad, even applying a bit of pressure, it still wasn't really going anywhere. So what I've done is just given it a quick mop over, just with a nice soft sponge and just straight water again, just some clean water, no bubbles or anything like that. Just giving it a quick rinse down. And what I'm going to do now is just go over one last time, just with a polishing pad. So looking at the results of that, what we can see, I can't even see where it was now, but the point where I was trying to focus on and kind of get those scratches out, like I say, where it looks like someone tried to use a bullet head on or something, it's completely gone. It's got everything out. There's not a single mark there. So I'm really pleased with that, really pleased with that. Coming back, some of the other bigger scratches, like I say, we knew we weren't going to be able to get some of these out. This one down the bottom here, like I say, with the stone chips, it's still there. It's a very clean scratch now. So all I need to do now is try and work out how to get this dent out. Maybe I'll have a look, see if I can invest in one of those little glue dent puller things. We'll have a look at that maybe in the future. But for now, hopefully that's been useful. You know, you've seen some of the tools, the pads, the orange one, the black one, the polishing one. That teacup polish, this one here, has actually worked really, really well. It feels fantastic. I think it did exactly what it needed to do in just helping out with those last few scratches. The compound polish obviously has done a fantastic job of really kind of getting those first layers out. So hopefully if that's been useful, you know, give us a like down below. Hit subscribe coming up here now, hopefully. Really appreciate your time for watching it, and yeah, there's loads more videos to come on this car as well. Alloy wheels, obviously refurb, that needs doing. We're going to be doing the suspension, we're going to be doing the brakes, we're going to be doing everything. This is going to be another project car in the very near future, hopefully. So we've got the sunshine coming out now, so fingers crossed we can get out. Lots of weekends coming up, and we can really get to work on this car too. So for now, thanks for watching. Hit subscribe and see you on the next one. Cheers.